Hello and welcome to part 2 of my 6-part 2021 Blu-ray update video. And if you need an explanation of why I'm even doing this, go check out part 1, in which I think I fairly adequately explain myself. In this video we have only a few titles, but this is kind of sectioned off into BFI and Arrow Video. So a few things that I grabbed. The first one, I think it was like $6.99. Which was an incredibly good deal. This is a fairly new Blu-ray that came out, I think, only last year. Yeah, 2020. Haven't watched it yet, haven't even cracked open the seal, and I already owned the film from BFI, so this is a reissue. But I had to grab it because there's new extras, and it is a new transfer, remastered in 4K. Now, I'm not expecting, based on the source material, this to be an amazing transfer, but it should look better than the first transfer. And even if it didn't, just having a different version, to me, it's one of the greatest films of all time. It's worth owning more than once, and I believe that the second film included here, which was also included on the first release, so kind of a bonus movie, I believe this is now presented in high definition. Might be wrong on that, I'm not entirely sure. But there is, quite a few new extras on this, so it was worth $6.99, which is practically nothing for a film like this, and it is Tokyo Story. Yasujiro Ozu, an incredible film that I've seen a couple of times now, about this kind of older couple, and I don't even go into the story too much. It is just this heartbreaking story about life and about parenthood and about death as well. You know, it's about this cycle of life and how you bring life into the world, and then, you know, the kind of not the student outgrows the master, but the child outgrows the parent in a way, and how that can happen. And there's so much loaded into this film that I'm not even qualified to talk about, in terms of, you know, when it's set in Japan and kind of the kind of politics of that, and the way society was in Japan at that time and how that plays into it, and even just the way that family issues are dealt with in Japan. It's just a different, you know, it's a different world almost. You know, the way that they treat their parents, the way that they look at their parents, the way that parents look at their kids, and the way things are done. You know, it's just a fascinating insight into a world that is different to ours, and then again transported back into the 1950s, and with just incredibly natural performances and just a heart-wrenching story that is also full of so much positivity as well. There's so much charm and sweetness to the film. I think it's one of the all-time great films I've ever seen, and I don't really say that lightly. So this has an introduction to Tokyo Story by Tony Raines, the legend himself, in a 26-minute featurette. Brothers and Sisters of the Toda Family, which is from 1941. I believe a 1948 short called Furnival and Son. I'm not sure if that is directed by Ozu also. And Talking with Ozu, which is a 1993 tribute to the director, 40 minutes in length. So yeah, and a 4K remaster of the film itself. For $6.99, it was just kind of a no-brainer. And another one that I bought, I think in February, is The Flavor of Green Tea Over Rice, which is in the stack behind me for me to talk about in my next Conquering My Collection video. So I'll talk about that in that video, because I have watched that film and I have some thoughts on it and so on. Next is a box set that I've been waiting to find for a good price for a very long time, and this initially came out in America from Kino, and then BFI released it as well. And it was, you know, it's tricky because you want to support releases like this and buy them on release, and sometimes I do, but sometimes you also want to wait for a really good price, and this went down to a really good price, like £16, and it is, I think, a 4-disc set, and it is Early Women Filmmakers, 1911 to 1940. I just, as a silent film fan and enthusiast, this is just a huge deal to me, because most of these films are silent films. Features the works of filmmakers like Mabel Normand, Louis Weber, Lois Weber, who knows? And I know how to pronounce this one, Alice Guy Blaché. Yes, I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. So a lot of pioneering female directors from the time, many of whom were uncredited when those films came out. And I watched one of the featurettes on this, yes, a short documentary made in 2018, I believe, for this release, or it might have been for the Kino box set. Alice Guy Blaché, a documentary where some film historians reflect on her work, and it was really interesting to see her history of making film. It's only 8 minutes long, so it doesn't really go into too much detail, but it goes into how she set up her own studio and stuff, and it was really fascinating to kind of get a little bit of background before watching some of those films. And I've seen 3 of them so far, and I will talk about them in the next Conquering My Collection video. But, you know, it's just fantastic to get these films in high definition. Some of the more obscure things that just, you know, big studios would never release or be interested in, and just the companies like BFI and Kino who first released this. The only problem I have, unfortunately, is there's not much detail about the movies included on this UK version of the set. Couldn't really find anything online. I saw it was £16 and I bought it instantly because I'm such a huge fan of silent cinema. This to me is like, this is film history. Like, this is such an important release. But I bought it, I ordered it, but I wanted to know what was in it, what films are in there, which filmmakers, and I couldn't find a list of the films. And even people on Amazon were like, there's no list on the back of the Blu-ray about what films are actually included. You have to go to the booklet. But so I looked at the Kino website and looked at all the films. I was like, oh, there's films from Lotte Reiniger, who I'm a huge fan of. And this arrived and the films weren't there. So not all of the films in the Kino release are included in this one, unfortunately, which is a bit of a shame. I'm sure rights played into that and so on and so forth, but there's still a boatload of stuff in. I mean, it's like, was it 641 minutes worth of stuff spread across 4 Blu-ray discs, so a huge wealth of material, and yeah, just really, really cool. I'm just in such a state of appreciation that releases like this still happen. They talk about the death of physical media and, you know, and all this sort of thing, and a box set like that comes out, like obscure kind of, well, yeah, like I guess in terms of the mainstream, they are kind of obscure films from female directors from like the 1910s. You know, it's just really great that those things still actually happen. Now, moving on to 3 Arrow video titles. There's been an Arrow sale, I think, on the website, an Easter sale of sorts. And I went back into HMV for the first time in almost a year and saw that they had their own sale on and really good prices. And the main one that really jumped out to me was something that I had been eyeing on the shelf for quite a while when I went into HMV a couple of times last year. And it was just, you know, it was £25. I haven't seen the film. It's a bit much for a blind buy, but it's a fantastic package with 2 discs, absolutely loaded with extras, and it was now down to $14.99, and I couldn't quite resist the temptation to grab it, pick it up, and if I don't like the film, I can sell it on to someone who really wants this edition, and it is Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the Terry Gilliam film based on the novel. Is it a novel? Or the book by Hunter S. Thompson. I don't know too much about Hunter S. Thompson. I kind of know the vibe of him, but I don't know too much about him. There must be something about him on the Blu-ray, surely, with all the, you know, the kind of laundry list of special features on the Blu-ray there. Now, the second disc contains For No Good Reason. I don't know what that is, and it doesn't tell you in the booklet or on the back of the... So, is it a feature-length making of the movie? Is it a film about Hunter S. Thompson? I have absolutely no idea. But there's a new audio commentary by Terry Gilliam, which is really cool. So they've really loaded this with lots of extras and like the content on the inside, a huge poster, nice thick booklet, nice hard outer case, just a really, really cool release. So I hope I like the film. I have a feeling I probably won't, but it's a film I need to see. I do love Terry Gilliam's films, and so it's one of those ones that I feel like I have to see. And I'm also assuming there's some sort of, brand new 4K restoration by Arrow Films, supervised by Terry Gilliam from the original negative. So you're going to get like an incredible looking version of the film, I think. So that's really where Arrow just steps up and delivers really cool transfers for the films. And then, you know, I was looking at all the Arrow stuff, and there was so many things. And there was Arrow Blu-rays that I used to have years ago that I contemplated picking up again, but I knew I wouldn't watch them anytime soon. Like Coffee. I really like Coffee, but, you know, I sold it at one point. I'd like to have it back in the collection, but am I going to watch it anytime soon? No. So I went for 2 things that I've never seen before. One of them is a Brian De Palma film. I'm a big fan of Brian De Palma, and this was also edited by Paul Hirsch, who I interviewed on my channel last year, and I did want to watch this, but he's just edited so many films, there just wasn't enough time for me to kind of go and watch his whole filmography. But this intrigued me, and reading about some very spoilery, unfortunately, plot details that he talked about in his book, which is a long time ago in a cutting room far, far away. I can see it on my sofa over there, so you go check that out. It's a fantastic book, but it is The Fury. So this one's starring Kirk Douglas and has some interesting... And I think he talks in the book about how this isn't really his favorite genre to edit and work on as an editor, but I was very intrigued by, I mean, just the cast itself. Kirk Douglas, John Cassavetes, Charles Durning is a very good cast. So I'm just very much looking forward. It's probably about 90 minutes short. It's like it's a 2-hour movie. Okay. Based on his novel music by John Williams. Does that mean John Williams did the score? I don't know what based on his novel music by John Williams means. Oh, no. I'm such a fucking idiot. Okay, so on the bottom there, on the kind of credits list, you might not see, you probably won't see it with the focus. Screenplay by John Farris, based on his novel. Music by John Williams. But there's no, like, gap in between. Like, yeah, you'd almost think screenplay based on his novel. I don't know, I guess it doesn't roll off the tongue. It doesn't roll off the tongue as well, but I'll try and get you a close-up there if you can kind of see it there. You can see where I got confused. Based on his novel music by John Williams. So that's interesting. John Williams did the score for this one. Anyway, that's one to check out and see what it's all about. And then this one, I'd never heard of. The Fury, I've been aware of that release for years and years. This one I'd never heard of before. The cast drew me in. Tommy Lee Jones, Linda Hamilton, and it's called Black Moon Rising. Very cool cover there. Both of those were $7.99. Again, boatload of extras, as you would expect with Arrow Video, but the plot kind of drew me in. So it just seems like a cool kind of thriller, kind of, and it's like 80s, and so... Oh, it's not, wait. Is it? No? 2002. I thought it was an 80s movie. Holy shit. They kind of worked me into a shoot on that one. The cover kind of felt very 80s, kind of just, I don't know, there's an 80s vibe about it, but it's not. It's from 2002. It's probably shit then. No, I'm kidding. Wow. Not even a 90s movie. So this is going to be really interesting because, like, the 2000s is such an interesting decade of change for me. Just the way that I feel it. Like, if a film was made in the 90s, I feel like I almost automatically enjoy it because it was made in the decade that I grew up in. But, born in the 80s, but truly grew up in the 90s. And also another thing that did draw me in was that the story is by John Carpenter, and it says on the back there, written by John Carpenter, action thriller, but it's actually written by John Carpenter, William Gray, Steve DeJohnette, and Desmond Nakano. So it's one of those ones where clearly Carpenter had the story, wrote the script, and someone else came in and said, okay, let's get all these guys to rewrite it. Any thoughts on that? Let me know. It might be a complete disaster of a blind buy, but I felt like it would be an 80s movie. It just seemed like something... I don't know. But then again, Tommy Lee Jones, Linda Hamilton, I enjoy those actors too immensely. So I'm intrigued to see what it's all about. So leave me your thoughts down below on any of those 5 releases. If you have any, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in part 3, where we take things down a notch in terms of quality, and we talk about some of the things I bought at Poundland. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
It's alright by me. Apart from the fact he throws cans of Carlin into a tree. Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, he's really cool. But he's not quite as cool as you.